My name is Sarah Miller. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a freelance graphic designer. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the morning light too bright on the screen of my laptop, when the text message came through. It wasn't just a text, it was a scanned PDF attachment, and the sender was my older sister, Jessica. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. Jessica rarely sent anything that wasn't a thinly veiled demand or a passive-aggressive comment. I tapped the file. It was an invoice. Neatly formatted, with Jessica Miller, Family Services at the top, and my name, Sarah Miller, listed as the client. The itemized list below made my jaw clench: childhood support, age 12 to 18, groceries, utilities, clothing, educational materials, emotional labor. And then, the total, $2,900. My eyes darted to the bottom, where a handwritten note was scrawled in Jessica's familiar looping script: pay by end of month. You owe me, foster beggar. The words hit me like a slap. My fingers trembled, hovering over the screen. I felt a hot flush creep up my neck, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. This wasn't the first time Jessica had tried to extract something from me, but it was by far the most audacious, and the most cruel. What she didn't know was that this time, I wasn't going to just absorb the blow. This time, she had gone too far, and it was going to cost her more than she could ever imagine. To understand why Jessica thought she could get away with this, you need to know our history. Our parents, bless their hearts, were always a little overwhelmed. When I was 11 and Jessica was 14, our dad had a serious accident at work. He recovered, but the medical bills and his inability to work for nearly a year plunged us into a financial crisis. Our mom worked 2 jobs, but it wasn't enough. For about 6 months, during the worst of it, I was placed with a foster family while our parents got back on their feet and Jessica stayed with an aunt. It was a temporary measure, meant to keep me safe and fed. It was a difficult time, but I always remembered the kindness of the Martins, my foster parents. Jessica, however, saw it differently. When I came back home, things were never quite the same. Jessica, who had always been the more dominant sister, seemed to develop a quiet resentment. She'd make comments, subtle at first, about how she had to step up while I was off playing house. Our parents, relieved to have me back and focused on rebuilding, didn't notice the undercurrent. They just wanted peace. Jessica, meanwhile, took on a self-appointed role as my protector and, increasingly, my keeper. She always had to know where I was, what I was doing, and who I was with. If I got a new outfit, she'd ask where the money came from. If I did well in school, she'd remind me how much she sacrificed for her own studies to make sure I had a stable home to return to. As we grew older, her control became more insidious. When I got my first part-time job at 16, Jessica insisted I give her a portion of my earnings for household expenses, even though our parents never asked for it. She'd say, "It's only fair, Sarah. I helped raise you when you needed it most." I always complied, wanting to prove I wasn't a burden, that I was grateful. I wanted to erase that brief, painful period of foster care from our family narrative, and Jessica seemed to hold the power to do it, or at least to keep it quiet. She was the gatekeeper of our shared past, and she wielded it like a weapon. A few years ago, when I was 28, I finally saved enough to move out of our parents' house and into my own small apartment. It was a huge step for me, a real taste of independence. Jessica, of course, had to help. She insisted on coming with me to look at places, then criticized every choice I made. When I finally found a place I loved, she offered to lend me money for the security deposit, saying, "Don't worry, just pay me back when you can." Family helps family, right? It felt like a gesture of kindness, a rare moment of genuine sisterly support. I accepted, grateful, and paid her back every cent within 6 months. Or so I thought. That was when the numbers stopped looking accidental. Jessica had a habit of helping with things, then later mentioning the cost in a way that implied I owed her. A few months after I moved out, she bought me a specific ceramic mug for my new kitchen, one with a whimsical drawing of a cat. "To make your new place feel like home," she'd said, smiling. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to me then. I used it every day for my morning coffee. But then, a few weeks later, she called, complaining about a sudden car repair. "I just spent so much on your housewarming gift," she sighed. "I'm really strapped." It wasn't a direct demand, but the implication was clear. I ended up sending her $100. It wasn't a loan, just a gift back, but it felt like a transaction. The most recent incident, before the invoice, happened at our ts anniversary dinner last month. I had just landed a big freelance client, a tech startup, and I was excited. I mentioned it casually, proud of the work. Jessica immediately cut in. "Oh, Sarah's finally making some real money, huh? Good for you. Maybe now you can finally pay back all those years of support." She said it with a sugary smile, but her eyes were cold. Our parents just chuckled, assuming it was sisterly teasing. I felt a familiar knot of shame and anger, but I just forced a smile and changed the subject. I didn't want to ruin their evening. But the invoice, that was different. That was a direct, calculated attack. Childhood support, age 12 to 18, groceries, utilities, clothing, educational materials, emotional labor. It was a complete fabrication, a twisted attempt to monetize my past vulnerability. The $2,900 figure wasn't random, it was enough to be significant, but not so much that it would immediately trigger a legal battle. It was designed to make me feel indebted, to put me back in my place. And the foster beggar comment was the cruelest cut, a reminder of the one time I truly felt helpless, a time she had weaponized against me for years. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, the PDF still open on my laptop. I went through old bank statements, emails, and even childhood photos. I remembered every loan she'd given me, every favor she'd done. I had meticulously paid her back every cent I truly owed, sometimes with interest she hadn't even asked for, just to avoid this exact feeling of being indebted. I found old text messages where she'd offered to spot me for things, then later subtly guilt-tripped me. I even found a forgotten email chain from college where she'd asked me to cover her portion of a shared utility bill, claiming she was short, only for me to later see her post about a new designer bag. The problem wasn't just the money, it was the principle. It was the years of subtle manipulation, the way she used my childhood trauma as a lever. I realized then what was truly happening. Jessica didn't want money, not really. She wanted control. She wanted me to always feel like I owed her, like I was less than her, forever the foster beggar who needed her charity. She wanted to keep me small, to ensure I never truly outshone her. That recognition was like a cold splash of water, shocking me into clarity. I wasn't just angry, I was done. I drafted a response in my head, then deleted it. I typed out an angry rant, then deleted that too. I needed to be calm, factual, and unwavering. I pulled up my own records, meticulously detailing every payment I'd ever made to her, every time I'd covered her share, every gift that had been reciprocated with a larger sum. I compiled screenshots of texts, bank transfer confirmations, and even old Venmo requests. It wasn't about proving I didn't owe her $2,900, it was about proving I owed her nothing at all, and that she was the one who had consistently taken advantage. The next day, I called her. My voice was steady, despite the tremor in my hands. "Jessica," I began, "I received your invoice." "Oh, good. So you got it," she chirped, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Just settling up some old debts, you know? It's been a long time coming." "There are no old debts, Jessica," I said, cutting her off. "I have meticulously documented every financial transaction between us since I was 16. Every loan you gave me, every time you spotted me for something, I paid you back. Often, I paid you back more than you asked for, just to avoid this kind of conversation." She scoffed. "Oh, please, Sarah. Don't be ridiculous. Do you really think a few $100s here and there covers all the years I basically raised you? The emotional labor alone?" "Emotional labor?" I interrupted, my voice rising slightly. You think you can put a price on that? Do you think you can bill me for my own childhood, for a time when our family was struggling, and I was a child who needed support, not a ledger entry? I paused, taking a deep breath. And calling me a foster beggar? That's a new low, even for you. There was a silence on the line, heavy and charged. I could almost hear her calculating her next move. Well, if you're going to be like that, she finally said, her voice turning sharp, then I guess you're just proving my point. Ungrateful. I always knew you'd turn out like this. No, Jessica, I said, I'm proving that I'm not going to be manipulated anymore. I'm not paying you $2,900, or any other amount. I'm not indebted to you. In fact, if we were to truly itemize everything, I suspect you'd owe me money. I waited for her reaction. You think you can just refuse, she shrieked, her composure finally breaking. I'll tell Mom and Dad. They'll be so disappointed in you. Tell them whatever you want, I replied, my voice calm again. I've already prepared a detailed breakdown of all our financial interactions. I'm happy to share it with them, and why? THU. I have nothing to hide. Do you? That last question hung in the air. She sputtered, then hung up. I didn't call back. The aftermath was exactly as I expected. Jessica called our parents, spinning a tale of my ingratitude and coldness. Our mom called me, her voice laced with concern. Sarah, what's going on with Jessica? She says you're refusing to pay her back for all her help. She's so upset. I explained everything calmly, factually. I didn't accuse, I just presented the timeline, the payments, the invoice, and the foster beggar comment. I even sent them the compiled document of our transactions. It wasn't easy. Our parents were heartbroken that their daughters were fighting, but they couldn't deny the evidence I presented. They saw the pattern, the clear manipulation. They ended up telling Jessica that while they appreciated her help over the years, they certainly didn't expect me to pay her for my childhood. They also gently, but firmly, told her that her language was unacceptable. Jessica didn't back down easily. She sent me a few more angry texts, threatening to expose me to our relatives, but I blocked her number. For a few weeks, family gatherings were awkward. Jessica would refuse to make eye contact, or she'd make pointed comments about people who forget where they came from. But I held my ground. I didn't engage. I just smiled politely and continued to live my life. The $2,900 bill was never paid, and Jessica never pursued it further. She knew she had no legitimate claim. What she lost, though, was far more significant. She lost her hold over me. The power she had wielded for years, the subtle emotional blackmail, evaporated the moment I refused to play her game. Our relationship, already strained, fractured completely. We still see each other at family events, but it's purely superficial. There's no warmth, no sisterly bond left. One morning, a few weeks after the dust had settled, I was making coffee. I reached for my favorite mug, the ceramic one with the whimsical cat that Jessica had given me. I held it in my hand, feeling its familiar weight. It no longer felt like a gift, it felt like a symbol of all the hidden costs, the unspoken debts, the manipulative gestures. I walked over to the trash can, and with a quiet click, I dropped it in. The sound was surprisingly soft, final.